We're here with Dan Lanning, head coach of the Oregon Ducks, the Big Ten bound Ducks. Accustomed to hearing Ducks flying south or north. Now they're heading more easterly. Uh, I wanted to ask you quickly. I was asking this actually to Lincoln Riley at USC a couple of weeks ago. How much earlier potentially are you doing advanced scouting on some of these new teams you have to face since you're not accustomed to them the last couple of years?
Yeah, personally, I've watched a little bit, but I don't know if it changed your calendar that much. But there's not a lot of flexibility in your calendar to do other things other than what's going on right there within that part of the season. So when we're in spring, we're fully engulfed in spring ball for us and what it means for us to get better. When you hit May, you really, do a deep dive into recruiting and get guys on the road as a coaching staff. But we always do summer projects, so a lot of it'll be attacked there in June, July, and then guys on their own trying to take an advanced look.
Dan, what I really like about you, and this is pretty much every success story you see in America nowadays, is at some point, it's not necessarily a breaking point for someone, but they realize, I'm going to go bet on myself and just take a chance. And, for you 13 years ago, that was taking a 13-hour drive halfway across the country to Pittsburgh from Riverside, Missouri, I believe, right, Dan? And you decide, I'm going to drive to Pitt. I kind of know their staff after talking to them a little bit, and I'm not going to leave until I get a job there, get my foot in the door. And sure enough, you did. That obviously took some guts and tenacity. What do you recall now, looking back at that time, that day you did that? And obviously, it looks smart now, but were you ever second guessing yourself, like, oh boy, maybe I should just turn around?
Definitely never second guessing myself on the drive. I've always talked about never wanting to live with regret, but when I look back at that now, I think a lot of people see a guy that was like taking risks. I'm grateful for the people that said yes, right? I'm grateful for Keith Patterson saying, yeah, we'll bring this guy in and let's see if he can do anything. Like, let's see if he's, can add any value to our program. So I'm grateful for Todd Graham saying, yeah, this guy can, work here. And that's probably what I think about more than now is like, it takes somebody on the other end saying, yeah, we can let this happen. Like, there's a lot of people that say no. So being on the right side of, somebody saying yes is probably what I look back on the most.
And it's also, you are betting on yourself, your work ethic, it's a big pay cut and all that. You're talking about your family and everything. And now that you're in the quote unquote big time, you're head coach at Oregon, one of the top programs in the country. I'm sure that you're not taking 13-hour drives anymore, but you're putting that type of work and ethic into other things. I guess I would ask this. I'd ask you to be pretty transparent about this, but I don't know. Tell me something that's equivalent to a 13-hour drive for you that you just said, I'm going to go do this as the head coach of Oregon.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I have that equivalent. But hard work's hard work. You're going to spend time up here in the office. You're going to make recruiting calls, and you're going to try to go above and beyond what somebody else might be willing to do in this position. I think I always have to challenge myself because I've told coaches the same thing, that when you're a younger coach and you haven't arrived, you're hungry, right? And you're battling for it. What's it look like once you made it, right? And the good thing for me is I know I haven't made it, right? I'm not where I want to be yet. I haven't accomplished the things that I want to be able to accomplish. So that's the hunger that drives me. What it looks like is it's the way you do anything. Like, everything that you do, when we make a presentation as a coaching staff, does it look like we're getting ready for a glacier clinic? When we do a meeting for our players, right? Are we digging and trying to find the best film possible to use? Are we doing it just like everybody else does it? So I think that's always the challenge, is people get comfortable and they do things how they know to do them, but you're limiting your growth when you do that. We want to be a sponge. We want to figure out what everyone else knows, be able to filter out the things that don't make us better, and then continue to improve.
On paper, you guys have had the best back-to-back recruiting classes in Oregon history, and you've got, looks like, a lot of depth in a lot of spots. But when you look at your roster now, with the transfer portal spinning and about to end, have you identified any spots this spring where you go, hey, we need to go address these needs here the next week or two?
Well, we always look for people that could potentially make us, a better team. And that's probably the number one job that I'm, charged with, is making sure we put the best product on the field. I think you look at the championship teams that I've been a part of, or even the national championship team this year, like Michigan's probably going to have more players drafted than any other team this year. And they won a national championship. When we were at Georgia, my last year there, we had 5 defensive players drafted in the first round. So talent matters, right? Coaching's a piece of it, but talent matters. So we have to go do a great job of getting great players and developing those players. So what do we need right now? We got to become a team. We've got a lot of talent, but now you got to get all those pieces to work together. And if we can find something that would make us and enhance us, then we would certainly keep our eyes open to that.
That reminds me, 2 years ago when you played Georgia in that opener, I remember your mentor Kirby Smart saying that I'm sure Dan would even admit to you right now he doesn't have the type of players. And I know as a coach you're like, listen, man, these are my guys. But 2 years later, the recruiting has been off the charts. When you look back and reflect on that, do you agree with Coach Smart in that regard? And where are you now?
I look back at that game and think about all the ways that I could have coached better, and think about all of the situations. I mean, from the beginning, it's a great education as a coach, but like we didn't do team warmups right that day. The band's entering the field and we're still warming up, and so there's a lot of things I could have done better than that. And if you
That's
want to
what
make it,
sticks out. That's what sticks out to you. You remember that? You remember that? That's great.
oh, I remember that. I definitely remember that. And they were the much better team that day. They played much better than us, but they were coached better than us that day too. So now, how can you affect that? You can affect that by the way you coach. You can affect that by the way you recruit and improving your roster and getting the right people in your organization. So we certainly challenged ourselves to get better there. But I look back at that game and think of all the things I could have done better. It's not just the talent gap, but we've improved since then. We're a much different team than we were the first time we stepped on the field when I got here.
You had Bo Nix at that time, and now you lose him. But I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. I can't recall a time when someone loses a 15,000-yard passer and replaces them with a 15,000-yard passer. Dillon Gabriel coming in from previously UCF, then Oklahoma last season, now at Oregon. I think he has 14,865 yards, so not quite 15,000. But this is a veteran guy. What kind of assets does he bring to Oregon? And for those who maybe haven't seen him all that much, how's his game different and comparable to say to Bo Nix?
Well, I think you fall in love with the person first. Dillon's extremely humble for a guy that's had a lot of success. I've told this story, and I actually heard him say it the other day. But I mean, he drives a minivan around because he can pick up the wideouts and go take them to go throw. That's kind of the guy he is. He's a really humble guy, but he also has the confidence when he steps on the field. He's intelligent. He's smart. A great decision maker. Bo obviously was a great decision maker for us. I expect those same things from Dillon on the field for us, but can articulate what he's thinking. Shows leadership skills on the field. So really excited about what he can do for us.
Back to recruiting real quick. How in the heck did you convince Dante Moore to come to Oregon when he was probably going to be the starter at UCLA? And you're talking to him in the recruiting process after he enters the portal, and I'm sure you just were up front with him. Go, listen, you're going to be the backup probably when you come up here. How did you convince him, and how has he taken that and attacked that?
Yeah, we were certainly very honest with Dante, but also told him I want him to come compete right from the day he gets here. I'm not asking him to take a back seat to anybody, and the same with every other quarterback in that room. Like the way you become elite is you have elite competition. But I think this is a place that Dante fell in love with a long time ago, and maybe having to go somewhere else made him realize how much more he really wanted to be here. He's a person that I have a ton of admiration for and respect, just the way he carries himself every day, and the talent is. We've seen it all over the field. In spring ball, he's very talented, very intelligent, and I'm really pleased with his growth here. So it feels like being reunited with your long lost son. Like we recruited him for a long time. Didn't get to coach him that first year, but really thrilled that he's here now.
And I know a lot of people want to label him as the future, but how much do you lean on Dillon Gabriel to really kind of help develop him as well when you don't have the time to do so outside the meeting rooms?
Well, I think that's part of the culture of the team, right? The team has to want to, they have to be willing and want to get extra work. And we have a team that's, wired like that. They realize things don't happen on accident, right? And there's a difference of being proactive and reactive. And you got to figure out, okay, what's proactive look like if I want to be great? It means I got to be doing a little bit more and figuring out where I can gain a little bit more information.
Receivers coach Junior Adams, typically you guys would just rotate like 4 to 5 guys a receiver. You guys are pretty deep this year. What does that look like potentially going into next year? Are you putting more guys out there on the field in the rotation?
If you're good enough, you're old enough, right? If you're good enough, you're old enough. You can impact us. You can play for us. I don't really care how old you are, but we can find ways, unique personnel groups to use, the talents that we have. And I think that's our job as coaches. When you have talented players, you got to figure out ways to use them.
What do you like about Evan Stewart, the transfer from Texas A&M?
The thing that probably sticks out to me the most about Evan is the way he attacks the ball in the air, right? He can contort his body and move it in a lot of different directions to be able to go, grab balls that a lot of guys don't go attack, right? But he's truly a guy when the ball's in the air, he's going to go attack the ball.
And Jurian Dickey, I know his entire season practically was on the sidelines because of injury, but this kid is phenomenal when you see him on tape from the high school tape. What kind of guy is he going to be for you this season potentially?
Yeah, I really hope this can be a coming out year for Jurion. I mean, he's big, strong. He's a matchup nightmare for some people just because of his size and athletic ability. So definitely hoping to see big strides from Jurion this year as he continues to grow and learns. And he's done a good job this spring, but I'm looking for even more growth from him.
Your defensive front was great last season. I think you lose five of your top seven defensive linemen. But again, I go back to recruiting and all this. I go look, okay, who they got coming back. And based off my numbers, you've got 8 first or second year players along the defensive line that were blue chips in the recruiting rankings, 4 or 5 stars. How do you feel about that group as you're wrapping up spring and the depth you have?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I believe the game's won on the line of scrimmage, and what we have in talent, we lack a little bit in experience. So it's about how quickly can we get that experience, up to par. And these guys got to start playing fast. Now we've had some awesome growth this spring with those guys. Our techniques really improve. Our understanding of the game is really improved, and that's what you need in young guys, right? It's a lot different than playing high school ball where they were at last, and how you control your body and the guys you're going to be going against. So we got to develop that group quick, figure out who's going to pop out and be able to impact this team for next season.
I know you're probably not really thinking about it, but you had any thoughts previously or maybe in the future about maybe trying to schedule some of your former Pac-12 mates now that you're going to the Big Ten for non-conference games or anything like that in the future? Any desire for that?
Well, I know one game that we would love to keep rolling is our game against Oregon State. That's a story has a history in itself. I think rivalries are something that makes college football great. So that's definitely something we hope that we can keep going for us here. But outside of that, I don't know what that'll look like.
Tell me a little bit about Division Street and how that's evolved for you guys with the NIL game and obviously helped you. But as things continue to change with NIL, what's the future for that, you think?
Well, I think the great thing about Oregon, when you think about Oregon in general, and one of the reasons I was really excited to be able to come here is Oregon's always been innovative. They've always tried to be on the cutting edge, whether it's facilities or equipment or sports performance. And I think this is no different. Everything that Oregon touches, they're trying to make sure that they're the best and the brightest and able to adapt. Right, so few things are able to adapt and change. So as the landscape changes with college football, we've got to be able to do the same here.
So, what's the first thing you do the Sunday morning after your spring game? What's on the docket for you?
Recruiting meetings, right? You meet with all the recruits that you have here on Saturday and try to do some exit meetings and spend some time with them. Tap in with the players that you have here already on your roster and try to give them some good feedback. But yeah, it'll probably start with recruiting, right? You'll go to bed that night after the spring game, recruiting. You'll wake up the next morning and start recruiting again.
What do you think about the rules and proposals and the passing of allowing analysts and other off quote unquote, we call them support staff or all field guys, but now being able to provide instruction legally on the field to players? Do you think that's a situation where we're going to see staffs balloon more, or it's just a matter of, well, staffs are pretty much going to remain the same? Now we can divvy up some different responsibilities among these guys.
I think every university is going to attack that differently. Ultimately, in my mind, it's great because you get the opportunity to develop coaches, right? I think about myself as a young coach, and one of the ways you learn how to coach is getting the opportunity to coach. So for us, it's not going to be about going to go get the hottest name or bringing other people in. It's really going to be more about developing the people that are already on your roster and already exist here.
When you look back, as we mentioned earlier, 13 years ago when you made that drive to break into the college game, and you've seen others, is it just a matter of when people ask, how did you make it? What is your advice to them? How do I jump into college football coaching? What do you tell them?
One, you got to be all in, right? I was really lucky to have a wife that was supportive of our dream and our vision. And you never look in the rearview mirror. There's a reason the windshield's bigger than the rearview mirror. You got to keep your eyes forward and focus on what you really want to be able to become, and don't put limitations on yourself. I think you can achieve anything if you take the steps required to do that. You have, Coach Norvell used to say this, and I think there's a lot of truth to this. right? Your habits of today have to be on par with your dreams and aspirations of tomorrow. So if you want to be somewhere, well, then your habits gotta match those goals.